All around the world, countries are seeking ways to forge closer collaborations through economic and political instruments. Now, at the global level, the European Union, EU, is an appropriate example of a comprehensive and successful framework to direct and channel cross-border migrations, and that's for mutual economic benefit of member countries. Other countries around the world, such as Saudi Arabia, for instance, are also reducing restrictions on cross-border movement for purposes of increased trade as well as foreign direct investment. Now, to a large extent, ECOWAS has also made gradual but slow progress in integrating the economies of the 15 countries that constitute it through various legal instruments. Now, one of the ways countries around the world are forging closer economic ties is either a visa waiver or making visa requirements less discriminatory and cumbersome. For instance, ECOWAS has succeeded in liberalizing trade and free movement of goods and persons among citizens of member countries under the framework of the Free Movement Protocol. There is also a removal of visa requirements and other barriers to free movement among community citizens seeking to do legitimate business. Now, at different levels of negotiation and discussions, especially at the level of heads of state and government, as well as ministers, ECOWAS has also inched closer to attaining full integration of our national economies. In 2019, for instance, members of the institution agreed to effect the adoption of a common single currency to be known as the ECO, which unfortunately has recently been engulfed in global politics with the substitution of the CFA francs for the ECO among Francophone West African member countries. Although much of African countries share similar migrant interests and objectives, beyond trade facilitation, unfortunately, many are much more reluctant to liberalize cross-border movement of people, and so implementing comprehensive framework for cross-border migration becomes rather difficult. Nigeria is currently effecting what it called exercise border drills to safeguard its national economy, the government says. Now, conversely, the country also announced issuance of visa on arrival regime for all Africans coming into the country. Now, this follows the country's signing of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, AfCFTA. The commencement of visa on arrival regime this year has received mixed reactions. Some have queried the wisdom or rationale, timing, and capacity of the Nigerian Immigration Service to implement it. So this week on Late Edition, I invite you to join me as we take a look at this new migration regime and wider implications for our country. I am Claire Adelabu Abdurazak. Thank you for joining me. Mohammed Babandede is serving as the Controller General of Nigeria Immigration Service, NIS. He has bachelor's degree in history and a master's in law enforcement and criminal justice over 3 decades ago. Now, he started his career at the Nigerian Immigration Service shortly after his national service in 1985 as an assistant superintendent. He has also served in various capacities since then, including Procurement Unit, Investigative Alien Department. Mr. Babandede was also an immigration attaché at the Nigerian Embassy in Bonn, Germany, and later Consulate General in 1991. CGIS Babandede was at a time seconded to the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons and other related matters. He was a member of Interpol Working Group and a holder of National Merit Award of Member of the Order of the Federal Republic. Now, my second guest, Ambassador Nkoye Toyo, is a politician, lawyer, and development consultant, and has served in many multilateral functions at the level of the UN. Now, she is a very committed human rights and gender advocate, one of the conveners for Women, which is a non-partisan platform that champions women inclusion in governance. She's also the convener 10,000 Women's March in April last year to address issues affecting strictly women. She's also the founder, Gender and Development Action, GADA Nigeria. She was elected to represent the municipality Udupani Federal Constituency of Cross River State in the 2011 elections at the Federal House of Representatives. She's also an expert in governance with membership in many gender groups. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me on this discussion. Let me quickly begin with, briefly on the exercise border drill, CGIS. So far, how is it going, especially with regards to the intent of government?
I think we need to commend the government for introducing the border drill. It is not meant to hurt the other people on the other side. People who are complaining that we have stopped business across the border. The border drill is meant to help all members of our neighbors, Niger, Benin. We are stopping unwanted things crossing to their country, and we want also unwanted things to be stopped across. So it is for benefit for all. But I want people to believe that the border drill is not a complete border closure. We call it partial border closure. Partially means that human mobility is monitored, but it's not open 100%. What we do, we allow persons to cross our national borders through a recognized control post with a travel document. So it's restricted. And people will know that the impact is great. We have arrested so many things across the border. We have arrested so many people across the border. Let me talk about the human beings. We have arrested people who ought not to be around the border. Asians who come across the borders, it means they have very bad intention. Why do you want to leave Asia all the way and come across the border? We have saved Nigerians from traveling out. A lot of Nigerians, either they are trafficked or smuggled. They used to cross borders, and many of them become a victim of smuggling or trafficking. Some die in the desert. So we save also Nigerians from traveling. We have returned thousands back to their respective country. I don't want to tell you the economic consequences and security challenges for this border drill. A lot of weapons are hidden inside rice. We know this. A lot of drug. In short, that is the greatest weapon. The drug. If you destroy the heart and the mind of your citizen, there is nothing left. A lot of drugs have been struggled. So I think we need to commend the government for the border drill. It is very beneficial, but it will not be continued forever. So we are putting measures to make sure it is sustained without necessarily closing the border forever.
I want to ask, what impact has it made on the efficiency of the NIS? Because if the border exercise, was not directed, by the government, would we have made such huge economic and political gain?
First gain we got is that we are able to work together with other law enforcement. Which was not happening before. You hear law enforcement cooperation sometimes at a higher level. We can meet at the joint intelligence board with the CG custom, with the military discussion. But today, the military, the custom, the immigration, they are all working hand to hand, shoulder to shoulder, doing the same activity together, which means law enforcement can work together, and everybody knows the difficulty of law enforcement working together in many territories. This is good achievement. But for the NIS, we have been able to implement what we ought to have been doing, saying that, look, we only have borders. You can only cross borders. So we are patrolling along the planks of the borders together with our colleagues, saying that you cannot cross just a national border. You must pass through a recognized control post, and you must pass through a document. We don't have that number of people to do this patrol, but today we are doing it jointly together. I think it's very useful for us.
So before now, you were not doing that.
We are not
so
able
that
to
that, that was this that was the gap.
Yes, we are not able. We don't have the strength to cover all these planks together. But now we are doing it together, preventing goods and people together. I think is highly commendable.
When that is vacated, what happens?
Yes, what we have done since the border drill has started, we have established what we call forward operational base. If you look at, we just commissioned one in Daura, we commissioned one in Ogun, to provide border patrol bases for our officers, not staying at the control post waiting for people to cross, but let them be staying along the border planks. It's a border patrol base, forward operational base with 30 officers, with a patrol commander, communication equipment, vehicles. They will patrol along the planks of the border with the communication equipment. If there's a need, they can alert. So we are saying that we are providing this operational basis so that these officers will stay together. This communication will be linked with the military. It will be linked with the custom. If there are issues above us, we can inform the military, they can react. And that's the most important thing, that we're around along the borders instead of us to come from a longer distance.
Before I bring in Ambassador Tuoyo, do you think they should be sustained in view of, the gains and the benefits that we have seen?
I cannot speak for the Commander-in-Chief. The President...
But you can give, advice.
There are many sectors the issues come around. My sector in human issues is just a minor. But if you see the number of drug intercepted, drug alone, weapon intercepted, it's very scary. And you can agree with me, things have come down during the border drill. You can see banditry, robbery, many things have slowed down.
If you were to
the Commander-in-Chief,
if you were to advise the Commander-in-Chief as the number one in immigration, what would be your advice?
What I will have advised is that we need to create a buffer zone. What is happening is that the contiguous community at the border will not allow puppet patrol. So we need to delineate the borders and create a patrol area across. We need to strengthen as law enforcement to work with the borders. It's not the weapon that will patrol. It's not the strength of the arms that will patrol. But we need to strengthen our relationship with the community, depend on the community. That's why in immigration we introduce what we call border patrol community, so that you can liaise with the border. So I'm sure Mr. President is looking at a lot of investment along the border. He just allows us to be in customs when they seize good before it is being sold to individual. But I'm glad Mr. President said, sell it to border patrol officers so that they can strengthen their patrol. We have just got some vehicles auctioned to us from custom. So I think it's very good with additional equipment, with additional training. And I hope if Mr. President can invest more in human beings by additional incentive to those who work at the border, the best way to tackle corruption is to reduce the attractions for corruption, improve the welfare of the officers, provide vehicles for patrol. I think we can do better.
Our conversation is not strictly on the exercise border drill, but it does have a correlation, of course, with visa policy, visa regime. But before that, let me ask Ambassador Tuoyo. Some people believe that there's really something not in sync, with this exercise border drill and the country's position on forging closer economic ties, of course, with our African neighbors. Is this consistent with the mechanism for trade liberalization?
Thank you very much, Claire, for that. And I want to thank the Controller General, for the significant work which his organization is doing for the country. I think there's a bit of a sense in which this looks a bit disjointed. It looks a bit like we're speaking with one hand or with one thought and reacting in another thought. I think that's the main thing that has worried a lot of Nigerians. How could we on the one hand say, look, we think our borders are too porous, we think too many things are coming through the border, but at the same time we're opening it up because we think there are economic benefits to be derived from it. So there is a disjuncture in the whole thought process from that perspective. But I think there could be an argument made, and we haven't heard that argument yet, that this is to enable us understand the working of a future policy which is directed at allowing Africans to come in with the visa on arrival. Because if you said, for example, that you wanted to be sure that your institutions were in place and the structures and the capacity and the necessary human resource, then you needed to take this action as a prep to what is going to come in the future. I think that would make some sense. But if you said you were doing it because of the paucity of our borders, it still doesn't take away the worry and the concerns people have that at the end of this exercise, we may return exactly to that paucity. And when we do return to that paucity, we have a legal obligation this time. It's not even something that we did out of a sense of brotherly African duty to grant people visas. Now it is obligatory because of the agreements we have entered into at the level of Africa, on which we are indeed obligated as one of the signatories to that protocol to allow these people to come in. So I think to that extent there is a thought that would leave a lot of people wondering, is this really something we have thought through entirely? I think at the level of the immigration, they may be able to say, look, this is something we have done over the years. This is our routine work. This is nothing new. We've done it over the years. But I think it doesn't quite answer the question about the insecurity and the concerns around insecurity.
Yes, but basically the focus is not just about insecurity, but you would agree that there's been a lot of downsides on the level of or on the intensity of the attacks of these violent attacks. The CGIS mentioned a number of measures that the border drill, evoked, which they have put in place now, should this exercise be vacated. Do you think that are they sustainable measures?
This is the point in question, and I'm not impinging on what he has said. I'm not questioning it. I'm not even going in that direction. What I'm saying is that to the Nigerian who is listening from a policy perspective, you are asking yourself, which policy are we implementing at this point in time? We have just entered an African protocol to allow people to come into our country, largely on account of the fact that we want to encourage more economic ties, we want to encourage more political engagements with ourselves, and at the same time we are closing the border. So what exactly is the policy direction that this is all driving? And I think that that's the point one wants to hear from him. Is it about the economy? And if it is about the economy, why did we go and sign up to something that we thought would do us good? It's not exactly, I know that they say the devil is in the details, and we haven't quite reached the level where we have that comfort level and we can sit with the details as it were.
Okay, Excellency, don't fast forward us to that. Let me return to the CGIS. We know, of course, citizens of ECOWAS community can, come to Nigeria without visa. I mean, that has been in effect, for a long time under the Protocol on Free Movement. But for citizens of other countries, what kind or class of, visa is open to them?
But if you allow me to just, because Ambassador has raised fundamental issues, I would like to state that the government of Nigeria was almost the last government to sign the African Free Trade. The reason was very simple. The government engaged Manufacturer Association, trade organization. There were the issues were discussed at different zonal level about the fears and concern and how Nigerian goods would not be in problem. This was discussed. People were complaining, why didn't Nigeria sign? But Nigeria was engaging. And after engagement, Mr. President signed. He made one statement I think we should be interested in, that he signed a free trade, not a smuggling trade.
Okay, so we should take note of that.
Yes,
it's
important.
Yeah, that's very instructive.
What we are saying is that the free trade has a rule. It's not saying that you should bring goods anyhow. What the government is saying is that there should be a rule of engagement. And for this border drill, we are already having meetings with Niger and Benin. We had several, this is I think the fourth meeting we had with Benin and Nigeria. What Nigeria is saying, we will move your people and our people through the national borders, but move them through a recognized port and with travel document.
Apart from ECOWAS citizens who already have the free ticket to come in and go out without visa requirement. Yes. What other African countries, what other classes of visa that are open to them?
First, I want people to understand visa. Visa is just a permit to get to the border. That's what it is. You know, when you are given a visa, it's just for you to be given a permit to board an aircraft to come to the border. The officer at the border, not only immigration in Nigeria, in any part of the world, can return you even if you have a visa, if you are not qualified to be admitted. So what the difference is that we will give you that visa at the point of entry. There, it was just misconstrued. People just made a lot of unnecessary propaganda and said, Mr. President said, visa free. There was nothing like that. He didn't say. He said that the government of Nigeria has liberalized visa for Africans to be issued at a port of entry. It's very clear. So the difference is that instead of you to go to the embassy to pick the visa, you will come and pick the visa at the port of entry. And in our administrative strategy, we said you will pick only at airports. No land border for now. And it's not able visa you will pick at the airport. We said only visiting visa, short visit visa. You can't come and say you want to take resident permit and you pick your bag from another African country. No.
Who are eligible to get this visa on arrival?
Any African who has an African passport. If you have African passport and you are coming for a short visit to Nigeria, you can pick your visa at the port of entry, and that port of entry will be an airport. I don't want to tell you the mechanism how we will know that the person before he leaves, but we know if a person is flying, we will know that person is coming to Nigeria. And we have strengthened visa at the point of entry better than it was before. Our visa regime, ambassador, you were ambassador of Nigeria in Addis Ababa. In the olden days, we issued visa only rubber stamp, ink and rubber stamp. Later we went to Vignette, visa Vignette, which means it will be typed and put. But this visa we are issuing at the point of entry is biometric visa. We will take your fingerprints and we will take your picture. And we just installed a clearance system at the airport called Midas, which you reported in NTA equally. A Midas is a system which you cannot cross border until we take your biometrics. So I want to assure Nigerians that it is not every African that is to collect a visa at the point of entry. Only those who are coming for short visit, business and visit. If you are coming to take employment, you pick it in the embassy and we'll give you short time. And now we have developed mechanism to make sure we monitor you when the time expires.
Short visit is what duration?
Would not more than 90 days.
Your Excellency, what are your thoughts?
I think...
because there seem to be somehow...
I want to say that many African countries are doing this already. If you want to go to places like much of Southern Africa, for example, I was in Zimbabwe sometime last year, and I picked up my visa at the point of arrival. It doesn't mean that I went there and picked up. I had applied formally. There's an application process. It's only issued at the point of arrival, and you pay your visa fee at the point of arrival.
Cash?
Which,
Do you pay cash?
I paid cash. I paid cash in the case of Zimbabwe. It was a $50 for the visa, and I paid at the point of arrival.
Were you profiled?
No, I don't remember being profiled. No, I don't remember being profiled. But let me not be sure. I don't remember. Because we arrived there pretty late. So I'm not too sure now. But we got it there and paid for it there. And it was issued to us there at the airport. So I'm saying that this is nothing new. It's been happening. I think from what he's telling us is that government in Nigeria is now taking this to another level.
It's been happening, but selectively. Because we know that there are countries who do not offer, Nigerians visa on arrival. So it's
within Africa, but with the passage of this law now, it has become mandatory for countries in Africa to do it. Yes, because it has passed as a law that affects, what do they call them? When you sign these instruments, a certain number of countries,
it make them mandatory.
It becomes into effect and it becomes binding on the
rest of the African countries.
Yes, you see, when eventually, it's like ECOWAS. When we agreed among ourselves that ECOWAS would not require a visa, hell was getting loose. But people are coming without a visa. But what we are saying in Africa, gradually Africa will move to a free visa, which means you may even come without a visa in Africa. That's the future of Africa. That's the dream of Africa. But now Mr. President demonstrated that and said, pick it at the point of entry. Others are doing it for us. That is one. And
the Controller General, this is the requirement of the
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
So it's not Mr. President. Once you sign on, You're bound by the obligations
some people will sign will not implement.
Okay, so that's a different argument.
So we must commend him for implementing what he signed.
Because even when you sign, your legislative arm will have to.
In Nigeria, very few things go back to the legislature. Although a Section 7 of our Constitution, Section 12 of our Constitution requires that all of that should be domesticated in Nigeria, it's never done. I was in the National Assembly.
Exactly,
so I know
that's what I'm asking.
For your information, visa on arrival, people don't know. When people shout that they need visa on arrival, as far as visa on arrival is concerned, the Controller General can grant it.
It has always been there. It has always been there, but some countries have made it their policy.
Sorry, I'm told we need to go on a short break. This is late edition. We're looking at, somehow, we've combined discussion on exercise border drill and, of course, visa on arrival policy, which has just taken off in Nigeria. We'll be right back. Don't go away. All right, welcome back, and thank you for joining me again this week on Late Edition. We're discussing exercise border drill and visa on arrival regime, which started, of course, came into effect this year. I have with me the Controller General of the Nigerian Immigration Service, CGIS Mohammed Babandede, and as well the former Nigerian ambassador to Ethiopia and former House of Reps member, Ambassador Nkoye Toyo. Again, thank you very much for joining me for this discussion. I want the CGIS to clarify for us, because we hear that visa on arrival policy is not new, just as the ambassador has said. And in fact, some claim that this has been in effect in some parts of the country even before the pronouncement of Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Okotoye enjoyed one of the type of visa. There are two types of visa for an arrival for Nigeria. There is the one which you must get approval before you embark on the aircraft that will bring you to Nigeria. And that approval is e-base.
Yeah. Okay.
You go to the website, www.immigration.gov.ng. If you are a citizen, not a citizen of Africa, you will go to that website and you will see visa on arrival only for business purposes. If you say you take up employment, it will not work. You must show you are coming to do business, and you will offload your invitation for business discussion or issues from a Nigerian company. You will pay the money online. You submit your application. We'll give you approval online. You will see your approval in your email. Then you can start coming to Nigeria. That's visa on arrival for non-Africans. Any other person who is a Chinese, American, German can get this business visa. This is good to assist business in Nigeria.
And that has been in place?
That has been in place. For your information, the first quarter of this year we issued like 5,000. Last year we issued like 5,000. The second quarter we issued around 7,000. The third quarter we issued 20,000. The last quarter we issued 27,000. So we have issued over 63,000 visa on arrival for non-Africans who are coming to do business. This is ongoing, and it contributed to Nigerians ranking in the ease of doing business, because we are liberalizing business for Nigeria. People can come easily and do business and go away. But as a visa for Africans, it is saying, look, you don't need pre-approval. You can come and pick the visa at the airport. For information, our airports have been linked with the Interpol database, and the Interpol database has access to many things: lost and stolen passport, globally wanted persons. We have also our local wanted person. When you come, you will get a visa you would not have not gotten if you have gone to our embassy in Addis, for example. If you go to our embassy in Addis, you will just get the visa beginner type of visa. But this time, when you pick your bag from Addis Ababa, I'm just giving an example. You come to Murtala Mohammed Airport, we will take your pictures, we will take your biometric, you will receive a biometric visa. So the African visa holders of passport, they will get their visa at the point of entry. The non-Africans will only get visa if they are coming for business, but they have to get approval online. We have written this clearly to airlines that do not embark, do not allow anybody to board an aircraft to Nigeria.
So which one came into effect January 2020?
For Africans, they will pick it at the point of entry, and they have been picking it.
Any rejections and on what grounds?
There are rejections. If you have forged passport, we will reject you. If you are not, for example, if you are a member of another country, because the possibilities are going to be of areas of abuse. Somebody may use a forged passport for another country, African country, but she's not African. We see the forged passport, we return it because we have, or you are a wanted person. We are glad to have you. We'll hand over to police. So that can be rejected. But other than that, you can come and stay for a short time and return back to your country. It's allowed.
Your Excellency, you talked about the fact that this is not new, but he has clarified there is the e-business-based visa on arrival, which Your Excellency enjoyed. But we also understand, that even at that level, countries who grant visa on arrival do so selectively or discriminately, depending on the color of your passport. Those with diplomatic passports, easily get automatic grants. Why, if you carry a green passport, for instance, you could be turned down, rejected.
I cannot speak for why countries do that because I haven't experienced that. Even when I had a diplomatic, that was different, and I had a non-diplomatic, which is what I used in my last trip. I didn't encounter that. I think it's more the ability to explain what you're going into a country to do and the contacts you have within the country and your ability to identify viable partners. If, for example, somebody said he's coming to Nigeria and applied, and the kinds of company and the kinds of individuals, you do a background check on those types of persons, and they have a not very clear ways of identifying them as credible and existing businesses or people that you would provide the kind of support for a person coming from another country into Nigeria. I think maybe that point, it may become a little bit questionable as to, even for the protection of the person himself, that is he or her that is coming into the country, we may have to raise questions about that. But let me just return to a point about this, because I really don't have a personal experience and I can't speak to that. But I am sure that there are ways to do background checks and see whether the kinds of information which people are providing are credible enough for the purpose of issuing a visa to them or not. And there's been a lot of migration for economic reasons, and the countries are very aware of people who are moving. For sometime last year I heard that actually in Nigeria the Americans have come here. They have a database of all the people who have migrated, and they know which parts of Nigeria have more people who have migrated than other parts. So they've done a sort of demographic analysis of where people are coming from. Most of the types of people who are coming, they have that kind of story. And I think that in itself is also informing the kinds of people who are getting visas in Nigeria or not. But I think I want to return to the
Do we have that capacity?
If you ask me,
yes.
See, there are, for your information, Mr. President gave approval for visa on arrival for Africans over 6 months ago. But he gave a condition: do not compromise national security. So liberalization without compromising national security is the key. Why do you want to do visa? Because you want to know the person. You want to make sure he's not a threat. Yeah. If you have a means to knowing who the person is, even if he doesn't have a visa, it is possible. I'm glad to tell you that there are a lot of facilities for advanced passenger information system, which means knowing person. It's the same with the multiple visa. It's the same with the multiple visa. So US give you 2 years multiple visa. British give you 5 years multiple visa. It's because of the knowledge of advanced information system. It doesn't mean that you cannot change over 5 years. But they have given you 5 years because they have knowledge of when you want to come.
Does NIS have that capacity to data? Yes, to interrogate
I would like to assure you, we have advanced passenger information knowledge. We have installed equipment in the airport for security issues that will not compromise national security. That's what I'm telling you. We're assured, we have told Mr. President, and I assure you national security will not be. In short, I'm glad to say national security has been strengthened by installing MIDAS, migration information data analysis system which captured fingerprints. If you have traveled recently, you know that we have to capture your fingerprint now. It doesn't mean whether you're Nigerian or not Nigerian. Once you are going out or coming in, we take your fingerprints and we take your pictures. In the last 6 months, we are not doing this. You will just scan your passport and you pass. So you can see enhanced security. The person coming to pick the visa at the airport, he will pick biometric visa, which he was not picking before. I think Nigeria should appreciate that security will not be compromised.
You know, some people think, yes, please, yeah, I know you continue, but some people think that this is mere wishful thinking, not critical thinking, because if you look at, if you believe that this is being pushed by economic considerations, considerations of revenue generation and, you know, job employment, then, Ambassador, does this not run counter to that? Because already our employment macro level indices are high with regards to employment level. Yeah. So if you allow people to come in, the unskilled manpower, you have a lot of...
I think we need to unpack this at different levels. Yeah. We need to unpack. I think the Controller General is speaking as someone who is interested in seeing around how people enter and leave the country. But when you go back to where this discussion started, it was about free trade. It was about economic benefits. I don't think it is entirely in his portfolio and mandate to talk about the relationship between the people they allow in and what it does to our economy. He could tell us about the security dimensions.
No, he could.
Well, yes. Okay, because that's the whole purpose. Yeah. We did not sign in that free trade agreement in order that people just come for the sake of coming. We signed the free trade agreement in order that we see how investment comes into our country. And I think it's important to hear from him about the connection between the two. I didn't want to hold him accountable for that, but if he's willing to do that, I'm happy to hear. I think the second point I would like to hear from him, and this is not to, in any sense, on the value, what they're trying to do at the borders, particularly at the airport. To what extent is this happening across the country? Because airports are just one or two entry points. Exactly. The real entry points of the majority of persons would be elsewhere. My greatest worry and fear is that we have an epidemic in terms of unemployment, one of the highest we have ever seen in the world, in our lifetime. And at the same time, we have one of the largest demographics of Nigeria today is that more than 70% of our population are of working age, and many of them don't have jobs. What does this mean for tackling the unemployment challenge that Nigeria has? I only read 2 days ago that one of our very big businesses is bringing in Indians in hundreds to do the work which Nigerians can do. So, I mean, I didn't want to go there, but talk about economic benefits of what we're trying to do here, because that's the whole reason why we're into the free trade agreement.
Exactly. And I know that if you have to travel, Controller General, if you have to travel to any African country, it takes much more, it's much more difficult, you know, to do that than even making your intercontinental travels. And I don't know.
First, I'm glad to say that we have reviewed our visa system to look into our economy. Visa is a tool for economic development. Visa is a tool for social integration. Visa is a means of ensuring that the country benefit economically into the system. We have packaged a new visa policy for 2020, and we hope government will release it. But let me give you just a gist of it before, before it is released by government. One of the areas we have changed in the visa policy is to provide opportunity for tourists to come to this country without compromising national security. For example, if in a country they can have a tour operators, they want to come and see Zuma Rock, but we have historical heritages in this country, or they want to see Daba, Salah Daba in Nigeria. You know, it's just packaging, how you package your tourist system. We can give you visa for tourists at the point of entry in collaboration with the tourist operator in Nigeria. So it means we have given business opportunity to tourist operators in Nigeria. Hotels will benefit. It has been well packaged. I don't want to give you details about it. So we are not inconsiderate of the economy. We looked at how it will benefit Nigerians. And people shout, they say, oh, Nigeria is unemployed. Nigerians, people will come and feel Nigeria. I tell them, look at number of Nigerians across the world. You should think positive about your citizens elsewhere. When people talk about, oh, a lot of Africans are here, I say, look, do you know the number of Nigerians in Niger? forget about their number, who own big businesses. Do you know the number of Nigerian businesses in Ghana? Do you know the number of Nigerian businesses elsewhere in West Coast? The banks, the spare parts. There are many. So we must be very careful when we react to foreigners. I don't want Nigeria to be like other countries.
But these Nigerians didn't get there on a platform of free visa or visa on arrival.
I am with you.
Yeah.
ECOWAS is a free visa, for your information. ECOWAS is a free visa. And Africa will be free visa. This is what our leaders have signed. But what we are saying is that we will not compromise national security.
How does it sit with ECOWAS free protocol?
I think the more important question for me is that this whole thing about economics is tied very strongly to security. I come from a state, Cross River State. We are the leading state in tourism. And I can tell you that one of our greatest challenges today now is the whole insecurity around the country. So I am delighted to hear him speak about the connection of not compromising between national security and the free movements of persons and goods. I think what Nigerians need to hear more and feel in confidence, you know, because it's one thing to hear it and it's another thing to be confident about what is being offered, is that ability to provide security. My niece, for example, was telling me that the business between Ghana and the United States of this whole Black African Americans who want to return to the diaspora back to Nigeria back from America to come and even claim citizenships in African countries is a huge business in itself. But the greatest problem we have in Nigeria, it's not happening because people just fear the country and fear the stories. And I think what if that business protocol and agreement is going to take us anywhere of movement of people and goods, we need to deal more with demystifying the insecurity problem in the country.
Let me pause you for a while. We'll be right back. You're watching Late Edition. We'll take another short break. Okay, Ambassador Toyo raised concern about security with regards to the flourish of tourism in Cross River State, and that's also the concern of many Nigerians. As this visa on arrival policy is in effect now. So, what generally will be the benefits beyond economics and all that to Nigerians?
The whole idea is that our leaders sit together, and the government of Nigeria consulted with its citizens for a very long time before signing. The benefit are enormous. If you allow people to move freely, there will be a lot of benefit. Let me give you an example. There is a church in Nigeria that attracts a lot of people for prayer. We allowed that visa on arrival through the e-visa system. But now, that church will be receiving people directly at the airport, get the visa at the airport. Do you know how much dollar these people bring for prayers? They get hotel accommodation, so the hoteliers get benefit, transporters get benefits. So there will be a lot of benefit if people come to your territory, if you are able to check the security consequences of it. People say Nigeria is already, she may give you example that people prepare to go to Ghana because of insecurity in Nigeria. But let me tell you, most of the insecurity situation are exaggerated. I'm very sorry to say so. Many people who visit Nigeria say, oh, is Nigeria so peaceable like that? That's not the same what we report. So we call on the media also to make sure they represent Nigeria very well. We know there are issues of pocket of insecurity. You may be surprised the peaceful nature of Abuja, for example. It may be more peaceful than most European and Western countries, because if you don't hear most shooting, most killing like you hear in most Western cities in Abuja. But small thing will be exaggerated and will be added to the bad stories we put about Nigeria. So in addition to the effort of Nigerian government to make sure everywhere is security, banditry, kidnapping are reduced, because they also attract foreign direct investment. If you hear, oh, I will be kidnapped, people will be scared. But in addition, people should not over-exaggerate situation in this country, so that that bad reporting will add to people choosing to come to Nigeria or to go elsewhere.
You know, when the issue of security threats, was heightened, we heard reports both from the military and paramilitary, of probable sources, fingers were pointed at people who come in through the borders and also at the porosity of our borders and the capacity of immigration personnel specifically, to check. Now we are, effecting border drill, partial closure of border to be able to address these security issues and other economic issues. At the same time, Ambassador Toyo mentioned it earlier on, we are also allowing people to come into our country. Doesn't that precipitate the security issues?
No. We're saying the same thing. All what we're saying, for example, for the Africans.
Yeah, so do you have the capacity to profile, people coming in so that we don't admit or we don't welcome inadmissible citizens or persona non grata?
I just inform you that the security checkup in the airport have changed completely.
From what
I urge you as a journalist to visit any of the airports. And we said Africans who are picking visa on arrival should not come to the land borders. Come through the airport only. That is two. Thirdly, we are enforcing our West African brothers, the ECOWAS, that you are free to enter Nigeria, but don't enter through the bush. Enter through the land border. And we are also telling our citizens, don't depart except through an recognized land border and go with a travel document. So I think this effort is showing that free movement does not mean movement without rules. Free trade does not mean smuggling of goods. All what we are saying is that we will enforce the rule of law, which even the ECOWAS agreement has agreed. The ECOWAS agreement did not tell you that just to carry your bag and go into a country. It says you must enter each member countries through a recognized port of entry and with a travel document. So is the African free trade.
How does the West African Police Institute, or so I think there's an institute like that, how does it come in here?
We need to do, this border drill had given opportunity for us to talk directly with, for example, like Benin. For us to do joint patrol, not necessarily working together, but to ensure that if Benin sees a smuggler with rice, they should arrest and escort and hand over to Nigeria. If Nigeria sees a criminal going to Benin, we should arrest and hand over. So what we are saying is that the opportunity, if we look at, we borrowed from the Schengen system. In the Schengen system, they have even given opportunity for third country national, which we are not yet there, which means if you have a visa to go to Germany, if it's a Schengen visa, you can go to the Netherlands. In the West African system, when I have a visa to go to Ghana, I don't have to go to Nigeria because of the security issues. But the greater cooperation among our countries will allow third country nationals to move. So the freer the movement, without compromising national security, development will be easier, especially in our regions where trade is done by persons. You cannot compare the trade in Asia, for example, where you do move things through electronic system. But here, great women in move with goods. I'm lucky to be surrounded by women here. Most of the traders are women in West Africa, and they move along with their luggages around. So if you block free movement of person, you are blocking free trade. They are related. What we're saying, it has to be regulated.
That's another point which I think is of interest. What's the reciprocity in terms of what we get with other countries of Africa? Because that's probably where the benefits are more visible. Nigerians like to move. Nigerians like to take goods, and human beings need to move around. If we know that because we have opened this opportunity here in Nigeria, there's going to be reciprocal in other parts of this thing. We need to hear about that because that's a more direct benefit in terms of what it comes.
I asked that,
and then Nigerians, because it also helps this issue of trafficking in persons and all sorts of things.
We call it do me, I do you.
Yes, I saw a write-up in the media about the powerful passport. And the powerful passport, they are not talking about whether the passport has security features, but how able it is to cross other borders. We hope by giving this opportunity, and government will engage. We have worked this with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. President has engaged all MDAs to discuss this. Nothing stops Nigeria after running visa and arrival free for Africans for 1 year to start talking to country A. We have run it for you for 1 year. Start, otherwise we block country A. So It's a strategy.
Okay.
And I know Mr. President is handling this very seriously. He has engaged the diplomats in this. Nigeria has started. You will see the effect that Nigeria will have opportunity to travel to more countries. So it is of great benefit to Nigeria.
I have just two questions, last. Ambassador, you are a constant traveler, of course, as an international personality. I'd like you to share with us what you foresee might be, challenges, in terms of implementation, and also might there be a need for a continental passport, where all African countries have one, just like we are talking about a single common currency, have one particular passport. Would it make it easier?
I think the African Union Agenda 2032, I believe, I'm not sure whether that's the exact date, but there's an African Agenda for 2023 or 2032 or something, which looks forward to having one Africa as one big family, with everybody having access to any part of Africa. That's the direction Africa is going. And these are the little steps. These are the little steps that are taking us there. I think part of the anxiety within Nigeria is this question of how prepared are we? Nigeria, are we ever prepared? Are we ever in the right place to take on the things that we take on? I think we tend to be a bit bullish about things. We get into it, and then we now figure out how to get around it and do things. Less the other way of planning it and systematically unleashing our energies into the process. But definitely that's the direction Africa is going, the direction which is saying that by that time, Africa will be one big family. It's been on for a long time. One of the greatest advocates of one Africa was Gaddafi himself. When I was at the African Union, he was a great advocate for the one passport for entire Africa. These are the good sides of it and the beautiful things about it. But I just wanted to go back to one or two things. Increasingly, I'm hearing the CG talk about technology as a driving force for making these things more accountable, because that's why they are saying come through the airports.
Yes.
Many will not come through the airport, we know that, and that's where the snag is. But even in terms of that come through the airport, let me take it back to him. To what extent is the command technology ready? I know they're very good with the biometrics. I know that at this point in time, when you go there for a new passport, it will surprise you that all your data will show from the past.
Really?
If you've had a 5-year, 10-year visa, the story comes up. So there is beginning to be a database
system.
Yes, because I just recently did one about 10 days ago, so I know the story of what's going on. However, it's not as simplistic, because he's beginning to talk about analysis, data analysis. We institutionally are not very good at using technology to do policy and to do decision making. And it will be good to see, because this is something which this agency would benefit from tremendously, how the building of the technological capacity of the human beings in the system is. And to what extent is that technology even available broadly beyond the airports, for example.
CGS, I'd like you, because...
just to add that a phone can do a lot of the things that we are talking about and feed into another system. Yeah.
Please take her questions alongside quickly to what do applicants for visa on arrival, what should they know? And how are you sensitizing Nigerians in terms of awareness and publicity?
Thank you, Madam Ambassador. This time Nigeria is doing it in an organized way. We didn't jump into it. We have what we call border management strategy 2019 to 2023. The way a strategy is developed, we develop it together with all the law enforcement, the DSS, the military, and it has been launched, which include also technological component of it. I'm glad to say we're ahead of it already. We have installed equipment. So we didn't just jump into fixing things, and let people have the knowledge that Mr. President gave directive since May 2018 for us to see how we can give visa on arrival for Africans. We are not ready until now. If you want to see more pass through the border, you will see the technology. But I'm glad to tell you that we have a target of what we call border management information data analysis system. MIDAS, like the way you see everywhere in the airport in the world. It will be a system that will collect information even before you travel. It will be an information that will be able to collect when you leave the aircraft. on arrival. It will be an information that will compare your fingerprints with the fingerprint of the visa you have given, if you have given before. It will be a system that will use information of wanted person by Interpol about stolen passport, lost and travel document. I don't want to make much details and to tell you that we are doing our best, but technology is an evolving process. I'm happy and I'm lucky to lead an elite organization. I'm very proud of the immigration. We are IT compliance, we are ready, but the human factor is the issue. We are doing a lot of training to make sure people don't compromise. It's not enough to have a machine. I used to tell my staff, if you have an inefficient system, you have expensive equipment is equal to expensive, inefficient system. It doesn't make sense. So we are deliberately building the capacity of officers, their character, the way how they could take care of information, and we're not doing it alone. When I say immigration is ready, the law enforcement are ready. We will police the border on behalf of all law enforcement agencies.
You quickly tell us, are there other things that applicants of this regime should know, and what are you doing about sensitization?
Africans can pick their bag and come to Nigerian airport.
Go ahead.
And pick their visas at the airport. But they should know that if you are criminal, you are not safe because you have enough information to handle you at the airport. Those who are not Africans, they want visa for business. They can log into www.immigration.gov.ng. Information will be available. They will pay online, no cash. They will apply online. They will get approval online. No human contact. They can come to Nigeria.
And for Nigerians?
For Nigerians, I would like to reassure them that we ease travel of people without compromising national security. They should feel at home that the borders will save them, even now, better than before.
All right, CGS Comptroller General of Nigerian Immigration Service, I'd like to thank you very much for giving me your time today to be on this program. Thank you. Your Excellency Ambassador Nkoyeto, you're always a friend and a sister. Thank you very much. I called you within a short time and you obliged me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to you, as always, for joining me this week on Late Edition. Let's do it again same time next week. From me and the rest of the production crew, bye-bye.